Why did we ever decide to put this on video? Because I think our voices are so much better.
Well, I got a face for radio. That's for sure.
I do too.
To be honest, when I present, I am a physical presenter. I really get into the presenting. I can't watch myself, and our producer can tell you, if they put on my voice, I can't be in the same room.
Do you think anybody actually watches these videos?
I don't know. By the way, I'm Josh. You're Mike.
I'm Mike.
All
Lucky
things
13.
People Profits, Lucky 13. But
The 13 comes because he's got 8 kids. I got 5.
If you're watching this video and drive and stop, please don't do that. But I don't know. I've never watched one. Our producers could be doing some stuff to us.
They could.
We
could have like the rabbit ears going up behind us.
That would be some fun stuff if they did that. Yeah.
That would be really fun. So, we record this here in Indianapolis, Indiana, and we've both lived here a really, really long time. And there's a gentleman that recently passed away that was, a lot of people have described him. If we had a Mount Rushmore of Indiana, he's on it.
Yeah.
He may even be on it like nationally because he was so well known. Jim Morris, who was the chairman of the Indiana Pacers and had so many other positions throughout the city of Indianapolis, he passed away recently.
Yes.
Had his funeral at a large local church here, and the place was packed, and politicians were speaking, and business leaders were speaking. This guy, I was fortunate enough to be able to meet him and have breakfast with him a couple of times and things. And he was a wonderful man, and he made such a ripple impact on our entire city. And when we were kind of chatting about this before we started, you were kind of talking a little bit about too the way that some conversations you've had around the impact that we can all really have. And like Jim Morris's impact is just there's very few people that haven't been touched by something that he's done. Like he was one of the co-creators of the Indiana Sports Corporation.
Yeah.
Well, all these athletic events that we have that are coming to town would not be the case without him. And I could go on and on about the impact he's had on poverty and or eradicating poverty and homelessness and the way the city's structured. And then he had this way of inspiring others to go do that work also. And so his ripple impact is going to be felt for a very long time.
Yeah, I bet you there is, I don't want to say half, but I probably might even be guessing low. Half of the city is employed today by trajectory moves he made decades ago.
100%.
And don't even realize it, don't know it. And that's when you're making impact, and that's where our conversation started coming to play is I had a moment, I got a personal coach and a small mentor group we go through, and this came up so, it was so relevant to this conversation, and I think it's so relevant to the business owner world, is have you ever sat down and just thought about the amount of impacts that you've made on the world, the people you've touched or the processes you build or the places that you've done, everything from open a door for somebody walking in on a bad day to, standing in front of a large crowd and giving, some sort of speech of sorts that just made an impact on. Have you ever taken that time and really dove into what that looks like? And as you talked about, Jim, I'm like, holy smokes, wonder how many touches, the 1 degree that changed 1 degree that changed 1 degree. And there are people living 50 degrees differently than they wouldn't have because of some move that was made a long time ago.
I think a lot of times as you were unpacking that, I'm thinking, I was talking with a colleague of mine, Marsha Barnes, who owns Valve and Meter, and she had Jim on her podcast. And she about 6 times in a row tried to pay him a compliment, and for what he's done, and every single time he deflected it and brought up somebody else. And I think there's a lot of people that are probably listening to this that have never thought about that question you just asked, because it almost makes them feel uncomfortable because of their humility.
Yes, yeah, humility and humble. It's okay to be humble and realize that my college basketball coach changed my degree by 1 when I was 20 years old, and 32 years later, that degree, if you add up how many times, 32 years at 1 degree going off. If we think about being 1 degree going off to the moon, we end up at Jupiter, right? Yeah. And the same thing this guy has done. And I think about that conversation. And so where I started to go with this a second ago was, what happens if we go back and just could relive our life, whether it's the business that we built, the families that we're affecting, maybe just the relationships we have, and really look at how many degrees have I changed, point A to point B to point C, and those relationships of life, and just not chest out, shoulders back, but just let it soak in that every day there's a chance, and I use the term reach, teach, and eliminate, to reach, teach, one person and change that 1 degree and help them eliminate an excuse or obstacle that will move forward. And it will hit me in the face because like you said, I don't want to think about all the lives that might be better because of me, because I probably dwell on all the lives that I might affected the other way. So
Yeah, I think that's so right, and we don't think about the impact that just one little small decision can make. I'll tell you a quick story. There's an organization called YWAM, Youth with a Mission.
Okay.
And it's the largest mission organization in the world. And the founder of it, Lauren Cunningham, who has passed away in the past year and a half, before he died, he was named like one of the biggest impact on mission work in the world that's ever lived, And so then another gentleman by the name of Sean Lambert runs a YWAM base in San Diego, Baja, which is basically Tijuana. And then he's got another base down in Ensenada, Mexico.
Okay.
He started years and years and years ago a home building program for the poor in Mexico. And the very first build that he went on to do this, he took his young daughter, and her daughter's name is Andrea East. She actually lives now here in Indianapolis.
Oh.
And they built this home, and his daughter said to him, "Dad, are we going to build a home for that family over there too?" And that started this huge groundswell of this organization called, Youth with a Mission, but it was called Homes for Hope, which the whole idea is let's go build homes for the poor in Mexico. And so then he built house number 2 and he built house number 3. And I don't know what the total count is, but now Homes of Hope has built hundreds of thousands of homes all over the world just because somebody said, are we going to build a home for that person as well?
Yeah.
And the ripple effect. And we often don't think about our actions in that way. We think, well, I'm going to go build a house for that person, or I'm going to go and compliment that person, or I'm going to, let that person, have my ear for a little while. And we just don't have any idea what that could do to them.
Yeah, and we tend to throw like huge names, like Mr. Morris will throw JFK out by the moon, or Elon Musk and everything he's doing. We don't realize that little girl at that moment in time, that one little comment can change so many things. I'm wearing Bomba socks almost every day right now.
Yeah.
Not because they're overly comfortable, they're delightful.
Yeah.
But because I know that this pair of socks is someplace else.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total
sense. And that
sense.
little decision. And so when I started going through this, Mike, I really started thinking about, okay, let me pause for a second and go the other way. Let me say, if I didn't exist, if I'm looking at the life that I would have lived, but look at everybody else's life, and I didn't come into the world, and I still see people, would they have been on that same path positively or negatively by the interaction with me? And that was the moment that I had to pause and really think about, because that's not being humble or being egotistical at that moment. That's actually looking at the reality. And I won't get into spirituality, but we were put on this earth to have a connection and an effect with other people.
Sure.
When you're building a business, it's not just about the products and the incomes that you provide, it's what are the other impacts. And all things people and profit go beyond the dollars that are collected, the dollars that are spent, and the people that work for you and the people who buy your service as a product. It's the trajectories that you're changing. And when you take a moment and just realize, if I didn't, what the world would look like, and because I do, what the world looks like, and then live out every day to make sure that when you have that chance to go watch that film, which hopefully we all get the knock one day and get called up to the big leagues, when you get to watch that film of life and you look at, man, I'm glad I had that conversation with myself, because my pivot moment went to, I started actually being intentional about my impacts and not just happenstance and hoping.
Yeah. So quick story. You probably don't even know this, but back in, mid-90s, I had a life event that kind of rocked me back on my heels a little bit. And I remember hiring an executive coach. And this is before kind of coaching was in vogue and popular and all of that. And I worked with that coach, and what he really challenged me on is, why are you here? Like, what's the purpose of your life? I get that you like to do business and you like to make money and you like to go out and do whatever you want to do. But like, what is really at the root of what Mike Lantz is really all about, and the impact that you're going to make? Not as an impact so that you can talk about the impact you're making, but like, what do you really want to do? And I remember he walked me through, it took about 6 months for me to really discover this. And it was really about the impact that I wanted to make on others. And I've kept that at the forefront of my entire life. And it's guided I have the wife that I have right now because of that.
Yeah.
Because we aligned on what our mission was. We have 5 kids, 2 biological, three adopted, because of that life purpose that I set up. We have businesses because of that. It's really guided everything. And so I think one of the pieces that maybe listeners might consider is, what is your true bigger calling and purpose? And it's not ever too late to, I mean, you may be ready to exit your business right now. It's not too late to set up something that's actually bigger than just people and profits, or just profits inside of an organization.
And to that point of exit, 73 to 76% of people who exit their business want their business back within 1 year because they didn't do exactly what you just talked about.
Yeah.
Is that the business identified them, right? And they identified with the business, but their true purpose in life they never found, right?
Yeah.
You can talk about writing a mission statement, a core focus statement. I lean on with 6 daughters. I lean on a lot.
Yeah.
I don't have this. I don't wear this. I don't want to hear any judge. But Mary Kay, when I say Mary Kay, you think
Makeup.
her whole company was built to empower women.
Yeah.
And when you hear that, you look at the whole product line completely different. You look at all the people who are out, driving the pink Cadillacs, if you will, that they were in an empowering women entrepreneur spirit that happened to sell makeup. And so I'm wondering, when we're talking about all things people and all things profit, are our leaders, are our entrepreneurs, are our founders really waking up and saying, yes, this is what I do because it helps me get to who I want to be or what I want to make the impact with.
Yeah. We had a really cool experience. Most listeners know that I worked for a company called Defender Direct, or Defenders. Dave Lindsay started it in 1998 out of the spare bedroom of his house, and grew it to an $800 million business in 18 years, 20 years. And we had the opportunity to have him back last Friday to do a session with Marsha Barnes, who was the CEO there after she was the CMO, and I was there as the chief people officer. And to hear we kind of reminisced for a while on the stories of the impact that, led by Dave, that he had on other people.
Yeah.
And it was just, and here's a guy, by all judgment and circumstances, he was very successful in business and had a very successful exit. But when you really hear him talk about the highlights of that experience, it wasn't about the money. It wasn't about the fame. It wasn't about the stardom of him being able to grow this business. It was all about the people and the relationships.
Yeah.
And that's what we're here to do, is to impact people and develop relationships.
Absolutely. And man, I'm on this kick right now. Maybe we can take this deeper in a future podcast, or we can write a book together. I believe you pay for wisdom. And I think that's what we're talking about right now. You pay for wisdom either through mistakes and lessons that you have in life, or you said earlier you had an executive coach. You pay for somebody to challenge you to shortcut that. So you actually pay a dollar figure rather than waste part of your life through payment, if you will, of the number one cost we have is our human inventory, our time. And so when you talk about making impact, are you paying for the wisdom through discovering it accidentally, or are you actually putting in the work either through an executive coach or through mentor groups, or just through that, just being still to instill another 10 discipline from earlier, and just really discovering what is it that I wake up every day, and I can say it so clearly, my mission is to reach and teach as many people as I can so they can find the joy, humor, and success that life can bring. And when I know I'm doing that every day, I don't go to work. I go to purpose.
Yeah, and think about that. Your purpose is that purpose can get lived at home.
Yes.
It can get lived here at the office. It can get lived in Will, our producer, when he goes back to college, as you're connecting with him, and you're just another person in his life that you can pour into
100%.
And so when you find that core purpose, you're able to live it in all aspects of your life.
Yeah,
with everybody you come into contact
there
with.
There is no break in between other than me going to a roller rink. There's nothing for me to provide purpose at a roller rink at other than laughter. That's why I guess I can provide the humor in life. But when you find your purpose, the work is just part of your purpose. You're not part of your work. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so when that impact conversation, and I think that's why we're celebrating this man, as Mr. Morris being a Mount Rushmore, because I couldn't tell you what he did for a living. We can name his titles, but I know the countless boards and because he woke up every day purpose-driven. I would argue that you woke up every day. I mean, I don't know how many companies you own. It took me forever to realize that ML Talent Strategies was you because it never registered to me that ML. Yeah. It just registered to me that there was a purpose that this company had, and now to connect all those dots. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So I know, and because we've all lived it. Like, there's entrepreneurs out there that are every day they're putting their head down and they're working their fingers to the nub, and they feel like they don't have an extra minute to have a elongated conversation with an employee or with somebody in a store or whatever. What are some just simple ways that we can start to have a bigger impact on the world we live in?
Well, let's talk about two. Number one, if you don't have an hour, take 2. If you don't have 30 minutes, take an hour. Whatever you don't have in your week, take double that. the impact you'll make from taking that time to work on whatever that thing is you're skipping right now, you'll get an impact from. Of course, you've heard me talk about before. I love personal development. I love going through codes like Ikigai. We've mentioned that before, which is, Japanese for waking up with purpose. And I believe the Japanese culture is so strong in making sure they do that. So I studied it, and it's, just going through an exercise. What do I love? And what am I good at? If I just do those two things together, that's called a passion. And that's awesome. But we also got to figure out what the world needs too. And when I can do those three together, now I've applied my passion and it's really turned into a mission. Does that make sense? But this bottom part of what can I get paid for, all of a sudden, when you tie those four together and you write in all those categories, all these words, think of a word cloud start to populate, and just going through that exercise, all of a sudden you're going to see that's what I'm supposed to do. Now, how can I do that and make money and provide an access to the world, and I'm good at it and the world needs it? And then there you take your steps from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And there's also something you could do today, right? It's about how you interact with people. And it's about, I don't care if it's the person you're talking to when you roll up and get your Starbucks coffee. They're all going through something.
Yep.
Right? And, you can be all horked off because you waited in line too long and treat that person that way, or you can actually be a blessing in their life too.
You want to pile on and remove a piece.
Yeah, exactly. Because everybody's going through something.
They all are.
And, if it doesn't take that much effort to just, encourage them and to just speak to them and listen to them.
There's some simple things. You just think about if I could leave a room and just say, man, I really appreciate your time today. It really had an impact on me. Just saying like that, although you're talking about what the impact it made on you, you're actually making an impact on somebody else, telling them it was worth it. And so this is my motto for the year. I haven't shared this with the group. It's been written behind the scenes. It's going to come out at the rally conference, but giving is living. And I find that when you're not sure what your purpose is, just start giving and your purpose will expose itself. Because when you're giving, you are living.
Yeah. So when is the rally conference?
Oh, end of the month. I'm doing a couple 90-minute sessions with InnoPower. What an amazing group. Good shout out to those guys. Yeah. Working with the minority market, brown, black, and women entrepreneurs who are trying to grow their business. We're going to do 2 90-minute sessions on Entrepreneur Leap, which is just how do we shortcut all those wisdom headaches that pay for mistakes. What if we could shorten that pathway and get these small businesses up and running and maybe take one out of a bedroom and turn it into an $800 million company a little bit quicker than Defenders did?
Yeah. So if you're in town, even if you're not in town and you can get to town, the Rally Conference, RALLY Conference here in Indianapolis is just fantastic.
It is.
And Josh will be speaking at it, and you ought to check him out.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Thanks for the shout out.
You bet.